In January of 2019, I learned about Imam Hussain. I had never heard of this great freedom fighter, this warrior for justice and equality and freedom. But after giving that speech in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I then learned about Imam Hussain. You need to go to Karbala. You need to go to Karbala and you need to learn more about Imam Hussain. Because in our tradition, in our culture, he is our Martin Luther King Jr., according to our tradition. And so as I learned more about Imam Hussain, I realized that Imam Hussain, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, that he fought against tyranny, against oppression, against Yazid, who tried to taint Islam, who tried to destroy Islam. And yet Imam Hussain stood with 72 men and women against Yazid, who had some 30,000 soldiers. And yet Imam Hussain realized, I will probably lose my life. But I thank God that he stood against injustice and against tyranny. As I look at the correlations between his life and Dr. King said that the true measure of a man is not where he stands in terms of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in terms of crisis and conflict. Imam Hussain showed the world where he stands and where he stood during that moment of conflict and convenience. Dr. King also said that if a man has not found something for which he will die, he isn't fit to live. Imam Hussain had made up in his mind that Islam, freedom, justice, equality, liberation was worth dying for. And so he gave his entire life. He gave his life for the good of Islam. He gave his life for the good of his people. He gave his life for the good of humanity. When I look at his life and Dr. King talked about how he used Mahatma Gandhi's techniques of nonviolence and how King was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. I found out in reading about Hussain that Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, they also looked to Imam Hussain and his stand against injustice, his stand against oppression, that inspired them. And that inspired Mahatma Gandhi to do his salt march to the sea. And so when I look at how Dr. King was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi directly, indirectly that means he was also inspired by Imam Hussain, because Imam Hussain inspired Gandhi. And if Gandhi inspired King, then that means that Dr. King also was inspired by Imam Hussain. It is truly a blessing and an honor, because Dr. King stood for justice, freedom, and equality. Dr. King fought against racism, against oppression, against white nationalism, against white supremacy at a time when black people didn't have rights in America, at a time called Jim Crow, when we were free, but yet we still had to go to the back of the bus. We had to go to the back of movie theaters. We did not have rights. We were considered second-class citizens. And yet Dr. King stood up for justice, truth, and liberation. Dr. King led nonviolent marches and demonstrations and protests and gave freedom speeches and rallies all around this country and around the world. Imam Hussain, his death triggered a movement. His death triggered a movement that caused freedom fighters around the world to say, if a man, Imam Hussain, can stand with 72 individuals, and if he could stand against that oppression and still set the people free, meaning that Islam did not die because of Yazid, but Islam lives because of Hussain, and freedom and justice live because of Hussain. If people could be inspired by that, then that gave them the right to say, we will continue in the same vein as Dr. King and as Imam Hussain and keep fighting for truth, justice, and freedom. In this day and age, there are those who seek to overthrow American government. There are those this day and age who seek to destroy our values of freedom, justice, and equality. There are those today who try to destroy the principles of justice. Let us stand together. As Dr. King said, let us stand together in the wisdom of Imam Hussain, and let us remember that we shall overcome someday.